Well, we've seen a better priest, we've seen a better covenant, we've seen a better than Moses, a better Adam. Today, it all comes together with warnings. There are warnings peppered throughout Hebrews, and each time we have a promise and then we have a warning, a promise and then a warning, and the warnings get more and more severe. And about halfway through, we see the final warning, which is quite severe. But it says this: if we deliberately keep on sinning after receiving the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice, but a terrifying expectation of judgment and fury of a fire about to consume adversaries of God. Anyone who disregarded the law of Moses died without mercy. How much worse punishment for those who trample on the Son of God, who regarded as profane the blood of the covenant for which he was sanctified, and who has insulted the Spirit of grace. It's a terrifying thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Essentially, the writer to Hebrews is saying that all of these, all of the judgment of God has been seen throughout history, and those who refuse him. Before, with the nation of Israel, it was come to Israel and join Israel or fall into the hands of God. But today, the writer of the Hebrews is saying, if you're aware of what God has done through Jesus, if you hear that Jesus is better than a law to live by, he's the better promise, he's better than Moses, he's the better Adam. If you hear and understand and come to terms with all of that and what God has done through the Lord Jesus Christ, there's nothing else really left to say. For if you refuse him and his sacrifice for you and what he's done for you, what you're essentially saying is, it'll be my blood. I'll come before God and I'll justify myself. And I'll show God my record of my life, and that will be appropriate to God, and that will be enough. The writer of the Hebrews is saying, if you refuse Jesus and his life as the better Adam for you, and the one who dies the death that you deserve, all that is left is the judgment of God. And judgment is something we don't like and we don't want to hear, but the only really way that we can get away with refusing judgment or ignoring judgment is to say that the world is just aimless and there's nothing that's going to put it right. Or if we do have that feeling of expectation of rights of wrongs, if people have wronged us and we know that, well, then we know that judgment exists and it's an important thing. All that judgment is left is from the hand of God, and God's the one who will reckon all things. Or we have a high view of ourselves and we just think, well, I've done that much good that I really don't deserve any judgment. But deep down, we all know that others have wronged us and that we want those wrongs to be righted, and that's a good thing. But deep down, we also know that we've wronged others. And we know that there are things that we've gotten away with and things that we haven't done right. Well, there needs to be a judge. There, in fact, is a judge, and there is someone who rights all wrongs. The great news is, of course, he says, those who do not draw back will not be destroyed. The great news is it says, the righteous one, in Hebrews chapter 10, he says, verse 37, 38, toward the end of the warning, he said, in a little while the coming one will come and not delay, but my righteous one will live by faith. The great news is it's by faith, that is by trust in the anchor, the one who goes behind the curtain to the Lord, before the throne of God, brings all of his life as an account and dies a death that we deserve. The great news is we live by faith, that's by trust. And so you don't have to live in fear or worry, but rather you live through trust that Jesus is the King and that Jesus is the righteous one and that there is none righteous but him. Come to him, turn to him in faith, and tomorrow we'll see what a life of faith looks like.